Who was Earl? Earl was a man with a past like us all, that shaped his life. He was born on November 3rd, 1926, into a rural Alberta setting that faced many challenges. It was pre-war and Depression times. Poverty was rampant. None of us ever got the complete story of his childhood, but small snippets of it emerged from time to time, most with the theme of struggle. His father was killed in a farming accident when he was very young, leaving his mother to single-parent 4 children. When she remarried, he was faced with the change and challenges of a blended family. Again, several years later, following his mother's death, his stepfather remarried, bringing more adjustment for a young boy. Many variables, including the economics of the province, made access to education difficult, perhaps even impossible. So, at the age of 14, Earl left home to fend for himself. The stories we heard about those first few years were scarce, most laced with poverty and hard physical labor. He lived by his wits and learned a lot of lessons that helped him navigate the years to come.
Earl was a man with passion and compassion. By the time Dad was in his early 20s, he'd landed back in Edmonton and had reconnected with family and his faith. During this time, he met and married Evelyn, his lifelong soulmate, and started a family of his own. Together they met and overcame many challenges. They moved several times, survived on limited funds, and worked together to house and feed their growing family. Dad's defining source of strength then and throughout his life was his faith. He served and supported the church with undeniable passion. Although never high profile, you could find him in the background. And when people came into our lives because of Dad's generosity, they stayed as lifelong guests. When listening to some of the stories he told from this chapter of his life, it is quite evident there were hardships. Hardships that resonated with a sense of adventure and determination.
Earl was a man with tenacity. He was a man with a plan. Some of his plans took years to form, but once enacted, there was no turning back. His tenacity was fueled by an intrinsic sense of entrepreneurship coupled with uncanny creativity. If he set his mind on something, there was never a plan B. When he needed to leave Edmonton for health reasons, he found some land he could afford and moved his family out onto it. He built our house there with little more than a hammer and a handsaw. Although it was a tremendous amount of work, he lived his dream. Those years in Barrhead were very difficult for us all, but later in life, those were the times he loved to reminisce about. When we moved back to the Fawcett farm in 1965, he figured out how to run a relatively large farming operation without owning a lot of land. He rented several small pieces of land, and with lots of help from his sons, he was successful, all the while working a full-time job in the city. There were always several income streams. He had cattle in various places around the province, deciding which needed to go to market in the fall and which to keep over the winter. Every spring we got a new crop of chicks, all of us looking so forward to those freezing cold Saturdays in the fall when we had to pluck and dress them all. He even had a milk run for a while, delivering to the neighborhood in customized wooden crates that housed a 4-pack of recycled gallon relish jars. He would likely say that his last venture was his best. Together with Mel, he started Gem Prower, accidentally registered with a misspelled name, but not really worth the money to change it. Gem Prower was the culmination of his ingenuity, tenacious work ethic, and penny-pinching creativity. Those were very happy and fulfilling years for Dad.
Earl was a frugal man. Dad always had an angle to save $1. He was into recycling and repurposing long before it was cool. We ate malformed wieners from the Gainer's reject line because he got a deal. And our gardens were literally acreages where he could grow his own food using free child labor. New clothing was rarely an option, but there were always lots of hand-me-downs to use. And not so gently used machinery was purchased at bargain prices, requiring a lot of TLC to keep it going. Waste not, want not was a lifelong theme for Dad. None of us have forgotten the hours we spent straightening the nails we pulled out of old boards. Save them all. Might need them someday. Many times we were reminded of the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity, the cost of grub. Dad was fond of saying the reason he had 12 kids was because they were cheaper by the dozen.
Earl was a man with a gruff exterior. He often came across as prickly. In his later years, he was branded Grumpy instead of Grandpa by his grandchildren. Perhaps it had something to do with his statement, "The dearest thing to my heart is seeing the taillights of the car my not-so-great grandchildren arrived in." He could be pretty scary and off-putting when you first encountered him, but if you were willing to stick around a while, he would show you his softer side. Behind this rough exterior was humor.
Earl was a man of humor. Everyone in his life had an opportunity to laugh with Dad. There was always an ongoing practical joke, a trick in the works, or some scheme being played out. Everyone had a nickname, though few were flattering. And most pictures of him have a silly expression or protruding dentures. He often composed funny little ditties or poems to make people chuckle. And he had an extensive collection of props, novelty candy dispensers, automated ornaments that startled the heck out of you, even signage indicating friends were welcome, but family needed an appointment. Dad had an endless list of quips, which he would recite at every opportunity. Dad has 3 generations celebrating him here today. All of us remember and cherish his Earlisms, and you can be certain they will be passed on for generations to come.
You can always tell a Howatt but you can never tell them much.
There is no shame in being poor. It's just a little inconvenient.
This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you.
Grandkids are your reward for not killing your own kids.
If it's not worth asking for, it's not worth having.
If you had the brains you were born with, you'd be on the floor playing with them.
Little kids are to be seen, not heard.
That is as close as damn is to swearing.
There are two types of people in this world, those that are Scottish and those who wish they were.
If I could buy you for what you're worth and sell you for what you think you're worth, I'd be a rich man.
He is as happy as if he was in his own mind.
If you don't eat your supper, you'll be having it for breakfast.
All of our guests bring pleasure, some by coming, others by leaving.
A penny wise, a pound foolish.
All hat, no cattle.
Toast is dried bread, burned black, then scraped. Anybody minding their own business isn't gonna notice.
happy as a pig in the mud.
Anything worth doing is worth doing well.
Like the fat lady said when she took off her corset. That lets me out.
Friends are welcome anytime, family by appointment only. An honest day's dollar for an honest day's work.
I've got to go sprinkle the dew off the lily.
Wear out the old stuff first. Is your diabolical constitution degastiating according to the world of perfection today?